So let's take those big questions. Will India, US strike this trade deal now? Is that the big carrot that United States has offered India? Which sectors can India open up? What is this deal really going to mean for the Indian economy? What will India get in return if the United States wants greater market access? Is Donald Trump's declaration that he's made today that a big deal is in the offing simply another pressure tactic by a president who's sometimes seen to be more of a deal maker? Joining me now, Meera Shankar, former Indian ambassador to the United States, and Raymond Vickery, author and advisor on US-India relations, the former US Assistant Secretary of Commerce and Trade, so knows a thing or two about trade. Let me come to you there in the United States, Mr. Vickery first. What's the sense you're getting? Is Donald Trump building pressure on India to sign up, saying that I've already done a deal with China, next India? Or do you believe that this will, in its logical course, actually happen as early as July or possibly as late as August?
Well, thanks very much for having me. You know, this is of a piece of the way in which President Trump likes to operate. And that is he destroys international multilateral approaches, the World Trade Organization, before that to general agreements and tariffs and trade, so he can place himself as the great man making a bilateral deal. And then what he does is create a problem which really wasn't there before, at least not in the way in which he made it so acute on April 2nd by announcing these atrocious tariffs across the board. And then he claims to have solved them. I think there will be an announcement of an agreement, but the agreement is going to be like that which was previously signed with the UK and is in the offing for China. And that is really, it's a framework. It addresses a couple of issues, but really it is not at all the blockbuster which he says, and is not going to do the things that he talks about bringing manufacturing back to the US and so forth. I think that there'll be some progress, but basically this president looks at trade deficits. And so he'll get something in terms of greater defense purchases, greater oil purchases, claim that that has brought down the trade deficit when it really has nothing to do with tariffs. So I think that's the kind of agreement you're going to see, and that's what you've seen so far with China. Basically, this agreement signed with China is just simply to have a truce on the 145% tariff, which he had announced earlier. So I think we'll see more of the same.
Meera Shankar, you're hearing from Raymond Vickery there saying that there'll be a lot of optics around whatever Donald Trump does, but the reality, the nitty-gritty of a sort of wide-ranging trade deal is unlikely, given the fact that there are a number of sticking points on critical issues, market access being one of them, agriculture products being another. So it could be at best a limited trade deal. It could bring some rationality to tariffs, but it's not really going to be the game changer that Donald Trump made it out to be today when he said a big deal with India is in the offing. Do you agree? Meera Shankar, can you hear me? Okay, that line has frozen. Raymond, go ahead with that. Am I right in saying, to pick what you're saying, that with Donald Trump, it's not about big ticket optics, but a very limited trade deal that he will make a lot of noise about?
Well, I think you've encapsulated it very well. You know, Wall Street has already adopted the acronym TACO for Donald Trump in regard to trade and tariffs. And that stands for Trump always chickens out. And what happens is he announces something like he did on April 2nd, which would have been a horrendous tariff on India. And he sees markets go down, and then he backs off, and then he claims victory for it. So I think that is of a piece, and that's what's going to happen here.
Right.
I hope that I'm
let
wrong,
me.
quite frankly, because I want to see free trade between the United States and India, or at least freer trade. And we could get that if we had a more rational and logical approach to the problem.
Let me bring in Meera Shankar, who we had lost for a moment. Meera Shankar, what's your sense? Raymond Vickery is saying this could be at best a very limited deal. Do you believe a wide-ranging deal is possible with the United States, given that there are several tricky issues, agriculture, market access?
I think the challenge for India is to, ensure that whatever trade deal is worked out with the United States, A, does not impact adversely sensitive sectors in India, such as agriculture, where we have subsistence farming, which cannot compete with the huge mega corporations which operate in the US. Secondly, that there are some benefits which flow to India beyond just staving off the tariffs which Trump has threatened to impose. See, at the moment, it appears that the US does not have fast track negotiating authority from the Congress to really reduce tariffs beyond the MFN, which they have offered under the WTO. So I don't know what India is going to get from
So what
this.
happens? What happens, ma'am, to the tariffs that Trump announced unilaterally in April, then put a pause button on them, saying I'm pausing it to July 9th? You believe that even if there's a trade deal, some of those tariffs will continue and carry forward?
Some will continue, like the tariffs on steel and aluminum, which have already been put in place and raised to 50%. And derivative products made of steel and aluminum have also been imposed the same kind of tariffs, 50%. Similarly, automobiles and automobile components, those tariffs will continue, but the threatened 26% reciprocal tariff will probably be withheld if there is a deal. If talks are progressing well, but no deal, the deal still requires some work to be finished, I am not sure whether the reciprocal tariffs will kick in or be suspended, as some are speculating that all the reciprocal tariffs may be extended for some more time, because deals with the EU, with Vietnam, with Japan are still to be finalized. They have not yet reached a point where they are final. So it could be that he rolls over the temporary suspension for some time.
Do you believe, Raymond Vickery, that's what could happen? That having dramatically announced a slew of tariffs at the start of April, then put a pause button on them, do you believe that at best Trump will withhold them as long as the trade negotiations are on track? Or he's separating trade from tariffs? He wants America's trade deficits to reduce with countries like India and China. Tariffs will be used as a weapon.
Well, I think Ambassador Shanker's right. This is not going to be an imposition of great tariffs, or it's not going to be a great opening. President Trump has shown in his track record that when push comes to shove, he backs off in order to be able to claim a victory. To hear him tell it when it finally comes out, whether it's the 9th of July or probably even later than that, it's going to be the sort of damp squib that it has been the case in regard to China and UK so far. So this is all of a piece to try to build a authoritarian approach, not only domestically in the United States, but internationally. I think that there will be some placation of him. NATO meeting recently showed, and before that with the UK, that you deal with President Trump by placation rather than confrontation, and then things go along pretty much as they have. And that's not the way in which the international system ought to run, and it's not the way in which U.S.-India trade relations ought to run, because these are the two great democracies of the world, and trade and economic engagement is very much a part of it. But it's not going to be accomplished by Trump threats and then claiming victory for a problem which he created in the first place.
You know, Meera Shankar, in conclusion, we've seen Donald Trump make these comments about how he stopped the war between India and Pakistan because he made it very clear, he issued an ultimatum. If you don't stop the war, no trade deal. Again, many believe that is Trump simply once again trying to claim credit and be at the center of anything that happens. Do you believe that Trump is holding out a carrot to India? And is it really going to make any significant difference having this trade deal with the United States?
I think it's not a carrot at all. It is the removal of a stick, because there's no significant concession which is being offered to India, as far as I have seen from news reports. Because, you know, MFN is the normal tariff. The 10% baseline tariff will still apply. The steel and aluminum tariffs will still apply. The tariffs on automobiles, automobile components will still apply. And India will reduce tariffs for the United States. So what Trump is seeking is he's holding out a big stick. Then he says, I won't use the stick if you open up. So that's the essence of the trade negotiation. So I don't see that there's any carrot for India. But what it does is to say, okay, it will stave off trade action that Trump threatens.
Okay. Very, very interesting there. Meera Shankar, Raymond Vickery joining me on that story. With Donald Trump, you've always got to look beyond the headlines and not the one-liners that he tends to throw to his audiences. Thank you both very much for joining me here at the top of the news tonight.